Who do we have? Can you turn the microphone on for her, please? Thank you.
Good evening. I have a very short comment about the minutes of our meetings here. And I would like to point out that I couldn't find them on the minutes page under the Board of Trustees on the website since last September. And, you know, we've discussed a lot of levy stuff in those. So anyway, tonight I discovered that they are actually attached to agenda packets, but weeks and months afterwards. Like for instance, the November 1st meeting did not show up until December 13th. So that's a 6-week lag. The November 15th minutes just got published today. So I would like to ask that minutes be recorded or published on the website in a place where we can find them readily and not have to page through agenda packets until we find them. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Okay, next is the report from our CFO, Lisa Howes. It's your floor.
Height is a strength of mine. Let's see. I have several things to report on in terms of what's going on with the state, our state government. But before I do that, I would just share that the last few weeks have been quite taxing, not only on our snowplow budget, which is at 0 as of yesterday, and we will have to dip into contingency to continue the snow plowing. And it's also been most demanding on our heating budgets. So now I'm going to turn to 3 different things that have happened since mid-December at the state level. The first is that the Joint Legislative Oversight Committee that is examining the K-12 funding formula met for, I think it would have been the 5th time, on December 12th. They've reiterated that they are not going to bring any recommendations to this legislature for this session. They will continue to meet. The last meeting, they heard the results of the statewide survey, and they also continued to particularly attenuate to potential discussion, I'm going to say, of adding to the K-12 annual appropriation a line item for a component of health insurance, which all the other public agencies now already have as part of their annual appropriation. Late last week, the committee that's called the Economic Outlook and Revenue Assessment Committee met. They meet a couple of times a year. They met for a full day, and the purpose of the committee is to develop a revenue forecast that then they give to the Joint Finance Appropriation Committee. And I would point out that they do that in isolation of the governor's office revenue forecasting, and it's set up that way on purpose. And they met for a full day, and they hear from a range of financial players, state budget analysts, labor officials, university people, banking representatives, Department of Labor, Public Retirement System of Idaho, Idaho State Tax Commission. I'm probably leaving out some. Overall, the message to this committee was that let's see, the chief economist for the state, his name is Mr. Santos, he said things are moderate, that things are progressing in terms of the labor market, in terms of wages increasing, in terms of housing starts. That's kind of how he describes it. This committee then, each individual, including our Senator Keogh sits on it, comes up with, in this case, a percentage increase, which they had to give to the committee head chair before Governor Otter gave his State of the State yesterday. And then they reconvene as a committee this Thursday, and then they will come up with a projected overall revenue. And so, of course, once JFAC has the revenue dollars, now then they hear all of the state agency budgets from which to, we have to have a balanced budget in Idaho to spend the revenue dollars. The committee also heard that, and we've discussed this here at our school district, that revenues are outpacing the budget for this year. Then the third and final thing I want to discuss is that the legislative session started yesterday with Governor Otter giving his State of the State, which includes his agency budget proposals, particular to the K through 12 budget for Governor Otter. He's asking for a 6.4% increase over current. Ybarra's September 1 draft budget asked for a 6.5, but there are some variances. First, Ybarra and Otter are in complete alignment that the third year of the 5-year teacher career allocation model at a cost of $58 million next year should be a top priority. And then there are some smaller but notable line item variances. One is that Governor Otter wants to keep what's called discretionary funding per unit at the same dollar amount, and Ybarra wanted to increase it by $179 per unit. But probably most notably, Otter included proposing $15 million in a line item to cover a portion of health insurance benefits. And that's probably a reaction of the statewide survey and the deliberations that he's been able to at least listen to or have feedback on from the interim committee looking at the funding formula. And Ybarra's doesn't include that. But Ybarra's does include continuing a major initiative for her in literacy, increasing those dollars, and Otter's is absent of those dollars. The other things that probably were highlights in his speech were he did not include a broad tax cut plan. He proposed cutting the state unemployment tax for employers. We have one of the state highest or most unfriendly unemployment tax structures for employers in the nation. And there was a meeting I attended in December by the Association of Idaho Taxpayers where Otter was there, and they gave an analysis specific to that of how it's really something that's a hurdle as far as Idaho attracting companies. So then next steps are in terms of the state setting the agency budgets, JFAC, once they have the revenue forecast from the Economic Assessment and Outlook, Economic Outlook and Revenue Assessment Committee, then they will start hearing over the course of almost 2 months all of the agency budget proposals. That concludes my report.
Don't have any
I have one question. Lisa, when you were talking about the economic outlook, in the second portion you talked about a percentage that they put out to Otter. What was that? Do you have that number or no?
So there isn't normally a large variance between what the governor's office revenue forecasts are and this committee's, but it's within a percent. Auditor's request was a 4.3% overall increase. When we, as a school board, sat down with Senator Keogh and Representative Dixon in, was that late October? Senator Keogh's number was a little bit less than that, but that was only a couple of months into revenues outpacing budget. So, we'll know what her number is this Thursday.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Need a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Would the superintendent like to introduce the resolution for the supplemental levy?
Yeah, you bet. Ms. Howells is going to come up and go over the resolution with you all.
Okay.
So for those of you in the audience, the proposed draft ballot on single page versus the 4 pages of the resolution is at the front desk there, if you wanted to follow along. So this really is the culmination of 7 public meetings and you, as school board members, of decision-making. It calls for a replacement supplemental levy on March 14th of 2017. It's a 2-year levy commencing July 1st, 2017 through June 30th of 2019. It is not a permanent levy. It's a 2-year replacement levy. It's delineated in the language year 1 and year 2 for a couple of reasons. We're going to levy unequal dollar amounts. In year 1, we would levy up to $8.3 million, and in year 2, up to $8.7 million for a 2-year total of $17 million. In response to your deliberations and I would say public input, this is more of a line item budget than we have seen in our district for now several years. There are essentially sort of 6 different bullets there that just capture all of the presentations that you heard and the specific line items in that presentation that you as a board have approved. And then it gives the dollar amount per category there of those 6 categories. Pending your approval tonight, we then send that to the county clerk. It's their responsibility to publish the ballot as it's required in Idaho, to mail out absentee ballots, to conduct the election. Our county clerk's office plans to mail out ballots on the 10th of February, intendedly to allow people to come in and vote in person starting February 22nd. And then, of course, there are many precincts where the election polls will be open 8 to 8 on the 14th. We also would, once pending this approval by the board, we'll publish this on the district's website. And then I guess I would turn to Sean if he had any further comments.
I think she covered it pretty well. Do you guys have any questions for us?
It was actually pretty clear.
I think it was very straightforward.
It is.
I think the main criticism that I had heard 2 years ago and then 2 years prior to that was a lack of this being lined out more specifically. So this, again, as Lisa stated, is a direct response to those.
Can't hear you.
Turn your mic on.
Oh, yeah.
One more time. There you go.
So anyways, as I stated, that the biggest concern that we had heard was a lack of a line item that was too general for many people's taste. So we have responded accordingly with this resolution in front of you.
Yeah, sure.
In reading the section 5.
Come up here because I can't hear you.
Oh, okay. The section 5, the continued support for Clark Fork Junior Senior High School track program. maybe misunderstood by most people, educational track.
Right, as
Rather-
opposed to, right,
Oh.
that's a good catch.
just
No,
sounds
that's a good
like
catch, because it
sports.
sounds like a
Just
sport.
sports,
you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Actually, that's a really good catch.
We could, and maybe Phil could help us with this a little bit, change to experiential learning track program. Would that be more?
That'd be easy, we could possibly still work some of it. Let's talk about it later.
Well, no, we don't need, we can talk about it now, because,
We have to
Oh, yeah,
approve
just
it.
leave it at that, then
Experiential learning track. It's, people are starting to understand
Yes.
what that is, so, okay.
Okay. We've also noted up here that there's a grammatical question in section 4 that is going to be answered. It's just a question mark as opposed to a period. Doesn't change the content.
Yes, and we'll.
So when we approve it.
You bet. We'll follow up with, and get the answer to that question. It looks like probably just a grammatical or
Yeah.
punctuation error, but we'll make sure.
Okay.
anything else?
Is preventative a word?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah,
Yep.
it is. Okay. I don't
You're
have
good?
any questions.
Really?
No, I was doing some research from other school districts in the state of Idaho, and this outline, breaking it down, does not seem to be the norm of providing this extra layer of detail, so I think it's...
Put your public on that.
Okay, pieces off now.
The juggling act of the microphones. I just was saying that I did some research online today to see what other school districts did as far as how they line item certain categories, and I think what we're doing here, what we're proposing to do here is more granular and provides more detail than anything else I saw in the 10 or so sample ballots that I saw from other school districts. So I think it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Good. So we have one addition and one question.
Potential correction.
Yes, so let me just, for the record, state the
First, we have to
grammatical
have a
piece that
motion.
we're going to check out, and that is, trustee Lewis found this, in the actual official ballot,
Section 5.
Section-
4.
for, starting with shall the Board of Trustees of the Lake Pend Oreille School District, all the way down to January 10th. In the preceding section, the resolution is shown as a question mark. On the ballot, it's shown as a period. And so this has been reviewed by our legal counsel, but it could be something that they missed. So we'll make sure that if the period is supposed to be a question mark,
Okay.
we can do that.
Okay.
And then the other piece, the change will be, instead of track, experiential learning track.
Are you ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion with the preceding corrections and additions.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the resolution calling for supplemental levy election as written here with the correction on grammatical correction in section 4 and experiential learning track added to section 5.
Second.
Any more comments? Questions? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Just let us know what the answer to that outstanding question is, please.
Yep, we'll do.
It's-
Now we got to approve a resolution, 1702 certificate of closure. How much money did you make on that, by the way?
The high school students pass the hat around, hopefully enough for my third child's college education.
Do you get a kickback from Schweitzer? I was just curious.
No.
No? Okay.
So this one, as you guys, some of you might not know, this has to be certified by you all whenever we close school, and this was for December 16th. People ask us all the time, there's no real hard number that we use, but typically if the wind chill values get down to around -18 or below, that's something we start to consider seriously. Like tomorrow, they're supposed to be down that low, but it's in the middle of the day, not in the morning, during the morning runs or the afternoon runs. And we simply keep students inside during that time. So this was for December 16th, and it was a sub-zero and safe ice.
Right.
You bet.
I have one question for you that has been brought up to me. Do we have we ever done in this district a late start, a 2-hour late start? Or-
No, that's one of the first questions I asked 5 years ago, because it's the norm in Washington State to do that.
Right.
It gives you 2 more hours to decide, make decisions. Here, we have a different funding model. It's based on ADA and not enrollment. So what happens for many of our students, if we run 2-hour late starts, they don't come to school on those days.
Right.
So that's the reason why we don't run the 2-hour late starts.
Okay.
And we actually have about 5 days built in every year, more instructional minutes than we're required to have. So we just hope that, we always hope we don't have to close more than 5 days.
And I can tell you in previous, revisiting this in the past, distant past, families need to plan their day.
Yeah.
And the 2-hour thing doesn't do anything for them other than just completely muck it up. And so they want a decision, in or out. Do I need to find daycare or I mean, they need to get to work, they need to get on with their life, and the 2-hour delay just...
It just slows everybody, yeah.
Yeah, it's harder than easier. So.
Yep. Thank you.
But good question. So I need a motion on that.
Make a motion that we approve the certificate of closure for December 16th, 2016.
I'd second that motion.
Any more questions for the superintendent? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. You guys have any announcements? I mean, we're back from school. I mean, something must have happened in one day, right?
A couple of announcements. First of all, you may have seen that Geraldine Meyer, post-secondary transition counselor, has made national news. So she was the 2016 Idaho Counselor of the Year. So she was in Washington, D.C., representing Idaho at the award ceremony. And as only Geraldine probably could do, positioned herself on risers where the First Lady was giving her final speech, and it was actually at this convention, and right over her shoulder was Geraldine the whole time. So whether you go to ABC, whichever news channel, you can see Geraldine right there. And if you do, you watch the whole presentation, there were 2 people that got hugs at the end, and Geraldine was one of them. So,
Yes. And she woohooed. And she teared up, and we saw everything she did.
Yeah.
I have a report that it was even on the German news.
Okay, so it was everywhere. So anyway, that's the news report there. And then we are preparing, January 20th is the spirit competition between Lakeland High School and Sandpoint High School.
Oh.
And it'll be boys and girls varsity basketball and wrestling all at the same night at Lakeland High School. So it'll be interesting to see how we can get all of that done with the competitions all in one night. But anyway.
You guys come up with a good trophy?
It's a oar, so it's going to be a battle for the paddle because they're on the other end of Lake Ponderay and we're on this end.
Okay.
So student leaderships came together to come up with that.
Nice.
So,
Very
yeah.
good. Cool. Phil?
I can make one announcement. We, continuing on with the Mastery Ed program, about half the staff's going to be down in Boise next week again, going through more of that training, working with 19 other entities across the state, and so we look forward to that.
All right. Thanks, Phil. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I'm glad Phil, you didn't steal this one from me. So we have been invited, you might have seen on your email, to Clark Fork has a experiential learning showcase next Friday, January 20th. The senior project portion of it is 8:30 to 10, then the track or experiential learning track presentations start at 12:15. I can't make it in the morning, but I'm going to go to the track presentations. If you want to meet me at 11:30 at the district office, you can drive out with me, and I'll be back probably by 3 o'clock or so. So I'll send you a follow-up, but it should be a great opportunity to showcase what you all are doing.
Nice. Cool.
Yep, and I have it written down.
Do you have any announcements? Oh, all right. Well, just checking.
My calendar.
Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. I sure appreciate it. It's really done. Thanks.